Carabelle's Legacy is a nonprofit organization in Tulsa dedicated to advocating equity in health, safety, and security for underserved communities. Their catering and micro cafe provide training and job opportunities for justice involved people. Their cooking classes strengthen families, and their after fire services support families during one of the most difficult times in their lives. These programs were born from the lived experiences of Carabelle's founder, Maria Morris. And while she is a successful businesswoman and community leader today, it wasn't always that way. Carabelle's legacy is named in honor of Maria's late daughter, who tragically lost her life in a house fire in 2018. And Maria's struggles with substance use disorder, stemming from illness and death-related trauma growing up, started long before that. Maria's disorder resulted in her mother, Michelle Hughes, bringing Carabelle home from the hospital after she was born.
When I received guardianship of Carabelle, my health was not in the best of shape. And I said to myself, I don't know how I'm going to do it. But the day I went to pick her up from the hospital, I carried her car seat up there and they loaded her in, gave me a bunch of paperwork, and I picked her up and it was so heavy to me. But I went ahead, took her down the elevators, got to the garage, really thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this? I'm 50 something years old. You know, I'm a diabetic with chronic kidney disease. And, you know, I was just very fragile at the time. And I picked the car seat up and put it in the base in the back seat. And I was fastening her in. And I remember Carabelle opening her eyes. As soon as she opened her eyes, I knew I could do it. I knew it's almost as if something beamed from her eyes to me to let me know that I could do it.
With Carabelle as motivation to overcome her substance use disorder, Maria began to put in the hard work of building a better future for herself.
I really just kind of closed my eyes and just like picked a program at Tulsa Tech, and it ended up being culinary.
She excelled in her classes. Student of the Year her first year, first place in a state competition. Her second year, she received first place in a state competition and third in nationals. At the end of 2017, Morris began to fall back into her addiction. She signed herself up to go to rehab on January 19th. Instead of following through, Morris would be recovering from the fire.
I remember my daughter, she didn't want to go to sleep that night, and like usually she's really good about her bedtime. She just looks at me and she says, "Night night, mommy, love you." The next thing I know, I wake up to someone yelling.
Morris says when she got up, the whole room was full of smoke.
And it was so hot. It felt like somebody had stuck me in an oven. It was so hot. And I panicked, and the first thing I did was punch the window, and I just swan dived out the window. And my brother, he comes around the house and he's like, where's Carabelle? And my heart just drops, and I remember running back through the front door, running back into the house, making it to the bedroom door, and I couldn't get in the bedroom door, and then I fainted. I woke up 3 days later in the hospital. A machine was breathing for me.
Carabelle died in the fire. Maria's sister, Mikkel, recalls the heartless treatment Maria received following her death.
We arrived to the hospital. Maria was unconscious. She was incubated. She was in the ER section. And so we were running kind of like this round the clock check in, trying to be there so that when she regained consciousness, we would be able to talk with her and explain everything that happened. Obviously, we weren't at the hospital 24/7 because we're also trying to get people situated, figure out where the family's going to stay for the night and all those things. And one of the times when we were not there, she got transferred up to a floor finally, which was great. And so we arrive, I check in with the nurse, say, explain who I am, explain that she doesn't know everything that's happened, and we want to make sure that a family member's there. And the nurse looked at me and said, "Oh yeah, we know who she is." And I guess she had looked at her records in their system and seen that she'd been there for different things, clearly, due to drugs. And when I told the nurse that she didn't know what had happened to her daughter, she says, "Oh, well, I told her." And I just couldn't believe it. And we had said, put in her chart, she doesn't know, please don't say anything. And what I realized is for that nurse, my sister was no longer a person. She didn't matter. She wasn't a mother who just lost her child. She was nothing, and she was getting treated like nothing. And the fact that she thought it was okay to tell a mom that her baby died while she was alone and she was scared, she was incubated, she couldn't even speak, she didn't have anyone to hold her hand, and to just be that cruel, I just couldn't believe it. And so I knew that I needed to be a part of this work to make sure that despite any circumstances or anything that happened, that we never forget that people are people, that my sister is someone's daughter, my sister is someone's mom, my sister is a person regardless of her circumstances.
Maria's treatment through the criminal justice system was no better. Maria's brother Michael is still frustrated and disheartened by their family's experience with the criminal justice system.
Since then, I've been paying attention to more court cases and how they go and how a jury trial goes compared to a bench trial. And I feel like our public defender kind of screwed us over. She made it sound like, oh, you guys have no chance. Like, she didn't even explain anything to us. She talked to us like there's no way we'd know anything. How would they even have intent in such a quick time with such little information? I would assume our public defender should have informed us of this. She was nice, but it felt like she was so useless. I understand now why people pay a lot of money for lawyers, and I think a lot of it had to do with race and the situation and assumptions.
Morris was looking at 15 to 20 years, but the judge sentenced her to 10 and ruled it would all be suspended if she committed herself to the Just the Beginning treatment program, in addition to some other requirements. Maria met them, and then some. She worked for She Brews Coffee House before launching her own catering business, now under Carabelle's legacy. Earlier this year, she launched Carabelle's Micro Cafe, located inside the Legacy Plaza Building East.
It's been very rewarding, even on tough days. Sometimes it's like, it's really hard. It can be really dark, and I'll come into work, and be surrounded by apprentices and employees and everybody who's just grateful to be there, grateful that they have good management, grateful that they have a place to be, which was ultimately the goal for Carabelle's, and I feel like we're fulfilling that. There's still not a day that goes by that I don't think about her. She's made such a big impact in her less than 2 years of life than most people make in their whole lifetime. So I couldn't ask for a greater gift than that. So I definitely feel blessed, and I know she would be happy, and I know that she's smiling down on us, and how much we've strived to keep going forward no matter what's come at us. So I know that she's proud of me.
We love you, Carabelle.